James Robinson looks like he's set to get closer to making his return to the Jacksonville Jaguars backfield. We'll talk about that and a move that was made on this edition of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jags, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, folks? I am Tony Wiggins here with Locked On Jaguars, bringing you the daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast because it's your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. And we thank you for making us your first listen as usual. Per usual, we're going to give you the stories of the day. The big story of the day is James Robinson got what looks like a little step closer to getting back in that backfield along with Travis Etienne and really helping Jacksonville probably sooner than a lot of people expected. So we'll discuss that and how it affects the team and what kind of offense and how dynamic those two players can become. Third segment, we're going to talk about Malcolm Brown, who was released. Nose tackle Malcolm Brown was released in only his second season with the Jaguars. What it means for somebody on the roster, what it means for someone who possibly might be on the roster. But first, we're going to talk about James Robinson, who missed the back end of last season and rehabbed the entire offseason because of a ruptured Achilles tendon. I believe he got it in the New York Jets game late in the season. Remarkable that he is running around practice the way he has been. We've discussed that. I told anyone who would listen to me that I was shocked to see him running the way he was running. He didn't look like he was laboring at all at the beginning of training camp. And now, today, he took live snaps in the 7-on-7 with a red non-contact jersey on and made cuts. So that means that we can anticipate his return to live active action probably sooner than later. I was thinking that worst case scenario that James Robinson would end up being on the PUP list and miss like the first 6 weeks. Now, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not ruling that out. However, I would think that he's probably ahead of that schedule, and we might see him sooner than later. Don't think it's going to obviously be this weekend against Pittsburgh. I don't think it's going to be in the preseason. Wouldn't be surprised if week 2 or 3, but if he makes it for opening day in a limited capacity, that'll be a good thing for Jacksonville. Talk about some of the things that he offers Jacksonville. On their depth chart, he's actually still listed as the starter on their program and on their depth chart. And that's a good thing to do for a player, because it says that 2 years ago, you were the best rookie running back in the league, one of the 5 or 6 best rookies in the league. You're not going to lose your job because of an injury, especially when you're replacing him, or you would technically, or you would be in that scenario, replacing it with someone who also has never played a snap in a regular season game, and Travis Etienne, who missed his entire rookie season. But because he was hurt early in the season, he's more ready to go now. They do offer, if healthy, some yin and some yang, which we'll discuss in segment 2. But in terms of James Robinson himself, this shows you what he is and what he's made of. You have to be in tip-top physical condition to make a quick return the way he has. And I'm telling you, man, when you see him, he's built like a brick. I don't know what his weight is. They don't have it listed here, but I would guess that he's close to 220 pounds with the way that he looks. He's different. He carries it different. He has a good body lean. Wherever contact happens, that pile is going the other way. Doesn't go down easy. We saw in his rookie year, he put his hand on the ground a few times and actually avoided going down, and actually scored and got some extra first downs because of the type of balance and strength that he had. So he definitely adds a lot to this team. He definitely will give Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne a lot of help in that backfield. And there's the thought that it would be some times where you see both of those guys lined up in the backfield together to allow Jacksonville to even have more versatility on offense. This helps Trevor Lawrence. This helps Travis Etienne. And this definitely helps this team. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get into all of that in segment 2. We're going to talk about what his addition to this team and being active does and how it really makes the Jaguars more dynamic and more different than they are without him. We're going to discuss that in segment 2, and then we'll talk about Malcolm Brown and the possibilities in segment 3. We'll do all of that here on today's edition of Locked On Jaguars after I tell you guys about this app, man. It's called the Elias Game Plan app. Now, I know you've heard of that name, Elias. You should, Elias, because it's the only sports app for the most trusted name in sports. It is almost the start of the season, and this time of year, you're going to need all the information for betting. If that's what you're into, fantasy, if that's what you're into, you're going to want to have that competitive edge and even just the knowledge before you watch these games. This player app is your one-stop source for player news, league-validated player stats, and team records. Expert game analysis for betting, building your fantasy team, and impressing friends. It's perfect for preseason because you get player previews to help you draft a winning fantasy team and team previews so you know what to expect during the regular season. And Elias, in sports, there's no other name that has that credibility. I know it for a fact. They are the heavy hitters. And once I heard this name of this app, I went and got it myself, and I tried it, and you'll love it. Here's what you need to do. Take my advice and download the Elias Game Plan app today with new features available all the time. Take your game to the next level. NFL season is right around the corner, so don't wait. Find Elias, that's Elias, Game Plan in the App Store or Play Store today. We thank you for making us your first listen because it's your team here every day on Locked On Jaguars, and we appreciate you reminding you also that we are free on all platforms. So let's talk about James Robinson coming back and what James Robinson adds in terms of value to Trevor Lawrence, to Travis Etienne, to the offense as a whole, and how this makes it tougher on defenses to get ready for James Robinson and the Jacksonville Jaguars. He's old school. I have, in the past, when I've done interviews, discussed James Robinson in the same breath. Now, pause. I'm not saying he's those guys or these guys I'm about to mention. But if there was a DNA, if there was a running back DNA, if there was a cloth that he was cut from, it would be from Emmitt Smith and Walter Payton. It would be that type of player, not only with the way that he plays the game, but the way that he carries himself and the way that he handles business. I kind of referred to it as he keeps his head down and he just plays the game. And he does every single thing that coaches love. Well, at least regular coaches, maybe not the guy who coached his team last year who took him out of the game because he can't understand the value of a guy who may physically not impress you when you see him, who may physically not impress you when you watch him run, if all you're looking for is guys who have speed and dynamite open field talent. That's not what he does. What he does is, James Robinson, is he finds creases because of his vision. He gives you more plus plays than negative plays. In fact, he barely ever gives you a negative play as a running back. He catches the ball out of the backfield. He pass protects and he blocks. But more than anything, he gets plus yards. He makes good cuts. He has great vision, and he gets the ball up the field. Now, will he be able to do that after coming back from an Achilles tear? If we use an example like Cam Akers, then yeah, a guy who is in really good shape can come back from this injury and be a version of himself that will allow him to still be very, very successful on the football field. So he's got to get in live action. He has to get involved, get hit, get in football shape. and also probably some of it's mental to know that foot or that ankle or Achilles is healed and it's not going to happen to him again. But knowing that those are the things that he gives you on the field as a running back, when you incorporate it in the Jaguars offense, what helps you to understand how that's going to look a little bit is if you do what I've done now 7 or 8 times. I've gone back and watched Philly in their playoff run and in the Super Bowl win in 2017 when Doug Peterson was their coach, and he used multiple backs with various skill sets. I think it keeps the defense off balance. It doesn't allow the defenders to develop I use a poker term, to develop this tell about how a running back runs, about what that running back sees, about what it looks like as that running back is coming through whatever hole. And it also means that, if you think that Travis Etienne, if you think like me that Travis Etienne is a multi-purpose talented running back, it gives you the chance to make substitutions from play by play without having drop off. And not a lot of teams in the NFL can do that. There are some teams that have been able to do that, but not a lot of teams can do that. And then it's good to always be able to hit your offense with a little bit of change of pace without losing production. And what I mean is it doesn't look quite the same when those two guys are in the game. Now, it's still yet to be seen because we haven't seen Travis Etienne in actual game action. And now we're seeing both of those guys after they're coming back from career injuries or potentially career-altering injuries, but they've done well and have gotten well. So I'm thinking on the side of optimism because it's preseason and because you guys are still clinging to hope that this thing is going to be better. So we don't really need to discuss injuries and doubt in the same sentence when it comes to these two running backs. Snoop Conner adds something to the table also because he's not as good as either one of them with what their various skill sets are. But what he is a little bit of both of them mixed together. And I'm eager to see him too in his proper role. Plus, what this allows Snoop Conner to be your third back instead of your second back. And and Rockwell Armstead can be your fourth back if they decide to keep four, or whether or not they're going to do that with Jamal Agnew on the roster because he's going to make it. But it allows you to do at that position something that I mentioned earlier this week that this team has struggled to be able to do, and that is build depth. When you ask your depth to have to step up, it's cool that they have to step up, but then you look back and another guy has to step up to their spot. So it could be very, very difficult. I think Snoop Conner is going to be doing some kickoff return work. Not that he'll get them. I think Jamal Agnew will get them. If, in today's game, most of the time it's a touchback anyway with where they kick the ball from. But in case there's going to be a return, even if Snoop Conner isn't catching the ball, he's 9 times out of 10 going to be back there blocking. So if he's going to be back there blocking, you don't necessarily want him to be your change of pace or your second back coming in off the bench. He might have to do that early until James Robinson returns. But when Robinson returns, it means Trevor Lawrence is going to have that many more weapons. Like I said earlier, a chance that those two guys will be on the field at the same time. Also, if Travis Etienne leaves the game, the confidence will remain in James Robinson that Trevor has the option of handing the ball off. So therefore, it keeps the defense at bay, or at least it makes them stay honest. Because the bottom line is, folks around the league have seen what James Robinson is capable of. I know the way he has worked and the attention that he's gotten from the staff, which is new. I know he has their confidence. And I can tell you right now, Doug Peterson is probably giddy that this guy is on his team because he's probably seen him from afar a little bit. But now he gets a chance to see him close up, and he's seen the work ethic, and he can understand the value that James Robinson will have on this team. So we're not going to get too overly excited, but to know that he was at practice today with the red non-contact jersey on, but he was running full speed and doing cuts in live 7-on-7 action, it just means it's another step towards getting him ready to play this season. Don't know if he's going to start the season on the PUP list or not. I don't. But this is optimistic, and you have to admit that this is something that is optimistic with him at practice. We're going to talk about the dismissal, or I wouldn't call it a dismissal because it's not college, but we're going to talk about the cutting of veteran defensive lineman or nose tackle Malcolm Brown, who, according to our latest depth chart, was the backup nose tackle behind Devon Hamilton. I debated this all offseason with someone because someone thought that he would start, and I had Devon Hamilton starting the entire time. Now, I will tell you this. I think the presence of two people on this roster made this possible, and I think it may be the potential presence of someone who is still unsigned in the NFL. I'm talking in Ndamukong Suh. We'll discuss that and more here on Locked On Jaguars in just a second, after I tell you guys about betonline.net, which is the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the number one online source for odds, lines, and games. Now, there's a lot going on. There's probably still something on there about Kevin Durant and where he's going to end up. That's a never-ending saga, right? But you need to go on BetOnline because you'll get it there first if something does happen with him. You can find reviews and news of every league, not just football and basketball. Baseball is heading towards that pennant. You got boxing and UFC still going on. BetOnline continues to be the online source for all your sports wagering information, from live in-game betting, scores, and podcasts. They have you covered. Head to toe, BetOnline, from top to bottom, is the best place for you to go. So use your mobile device to learn more about the action happening today, because BetOnline is where the game starts. The game may start there, but your day on podcasting starts here with me on Locked On NFL and Locked On Jaguars, because it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. Now, your next listen should be Locked On Fantasy Football with Vinny Iyer. Vinny is one of the best in the business with Locked On Fantasy Football, with fantasy football all around. Whether you're in a standard league, PPR league, 10, 12, or 14-person league, Vinny will have the information you need in order for you to make your draft go the way you want it to. So check out Locked On Fantasy Football here on the Locked On Podcast and Locked On NFL Network. It's your team every day. Make sure you like and subscribe, and we are free on all platforms. Speaking of being on a platform and being pushed off, walking the plank, you never want to see a guy get cut. I feel worse when the guy's a young guy. I don't feel so bad when he's been in the league for a while and made some money. I remember Malcolm Brown was a first-round pick out of Texas with the New England Patriots. Malcolm Brown was cut today. I'm sure he'll land on his feet. So you wonder why. Could it be a combination of him being outplayed? Yeah. It could also be that somebody else is available, like in Ndamukong Suh, and this team wants to make room to be able to make a move for him. Or it could be this. The fact that Devon Hamilton is very good, which I've always known, and Jay Tufele, who missed most of last season, the fourth-round pick in 2021, maybe he's shown a little bit. It could also be the fact that Fotorunzo Fadakazi, their free agent signing that they paid a boatload of money from the New York Jets to come in here, that he can double as a defensive tackle, even though right now he's playing as a defensive end in a three-man front. The fact that Fadakazi was mainly a nose tackle with the Jets, but can also two-gap and play a little 3 and 5 technique. The fact that he probably gives them the depth along with Jay Tufele and some other players, including Raekwon Williams. And I've also seen a lot of Jeremiah Ledbetter lining up in practice. Israel Antwine has looked pretty good. When you see him in preseason, he's number 93. So maybe they can go younger, make room because of their versatility and their ability to move around people on the defense, and probably keep another number somewhere else. For instance, the last few days, I don't know what y'all thought about Chris Claybrooks, but I did not think Chris Claybrooks had the upper hand of being able to stick around in this team. That has changed my mind over the last few practices. Chris Claybrooks looks like the real deal to be a part of the depth of this defense. He has the respect of his teammates too, and that kind of stuff matters. When you have rookies like Monteric Brown, who's playing well, and also this Xavier Crawford kid that I have seen play really, really well, and he's been lining up with the twos. Well, maybe now you want to mix it up a little bit, and your numbers game in the defensive backfield is bigger and bolder than you thought. And now you may need to make room and look around at the defensive line and say, it's a lot of versatility here. So what we're going to do is we're going to be able to use one less body at that position, a guy who probably wasn't going to give you but 10 snaps anyway, and now be able to bolster another position and keep an extra player. Because Rudy Ford's a great special teams player. So do you remove Rudy Ford? And then the guy that everybody's been wanting to cut for a long time, Dewey Wingard. You ain't cutting him. Based on what I've seen in practice, ain't no way he's going to get cut. All right? And he shouldn't. And then Daniel Thomas played well in live scrimmages the other night. They may keep 10 or 11 defensive backs. What will allow them to do that is if they have the versatility on another unit where they can remove a guy who was going to be on this team based on his salary and just let him go. Or could it be another elephant in the room, and that is that Ndamukong Suh is unsigned and that they're looking in that direction. Now, let me give you an idea of why I think the latter might be what's going on. I saw a report, and I retweeted it yesterday, that Danny Shelton, who recently signed with the Kansas City Chiefs, a one-year deal, another former first-round pick, that Danny Shelton said that one of the teams that were suitors of him were the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that his decision actually came down to either Jacksonville or Kansas City, and he ultimately chose the Chiefs. That tells me that they're still looking for someone at that position, and it's not just about them being satisfied with whoever they have on their roster. Ndamukong Suh is there. Don't know if it'll happen. We'll see. I see a lot of people on Twitter, though, saying we don't want that dirty player on our team. There's a lot of people I love, man, that have long memories, that don't like to forget stuff. Ndamukong Suh had a late hit in the Super Bowl, and he stomped a guy in the head. What I know it sounds bad. It's like, well, he can't just speedball past the fact that he stepped on the guy's head before, right? But really, it was a long time ago. And outside of that, Ndamukong Suh has not been considered a dirty player. I don't think anyone other than people that never want to forget anything will look at Ndamukong Suh's career, and the first thing you think about is him being a dirty player. I don't think that. And I know there's a lot of people that think I'm pro player or that I'm too easy to forgive people for stuff. I guess I've just been through a lot and probably put people through a lot of stuff where I'm just kind of that dude that says, it ain't that bad, man. Come on. So, neither here nor there. I'm not going to be upset if they sign Ndamukong Suh. From what I heard off the field, he does a lot of charity work and he does a lot of good things for a lot of people in the community. I don't think he's a dirty player. So if you're not looking at YouTube, you don't see the smile on my face. The smile on my face is because, I don't know, man. I just sometimes just don't think everything's just that bad. So we'll have to see. And here's where it comes from. I'm gonna be honest with you. I had this talk with somebody. I think it was Dave Campo. I was talking to him about when people label people terrible folks. I understand about Deshaun Watson and all that. Look, I had never defend nothing like that, right? If you knew what a lot of people knew about folks that play pro sports, you wouldn't think that some of the stuff that you see is bad compared to a lot of the stuff you've never heard about. So let that sink in. And that's why I feel the way I feel. Not no investigative report or nothing like that. I don't move like that way. In my own life, I don't move that way. I guess I've been a barber so long that I'm like a bartender, and I have heard some of the worst. I stopped somebody from getting murdered twice in the barbershop. So when I tell you there's nothing that's going to shock me that I see or hear in a barbershop, then, I don't know, having to go to court because somebody attempted to kill somebody, that things just aren't always that bad to me. So maybe that's a flaw with me, but I do think sometimes that we can be a little bit harsh in the way that we keep holding on to everything that someone does. But in any event, I don't think most people care if he comes here and he plays well and doesn't get out here and start doing crazy stuff in the community. So be on the lookout. They may add someone because they were looking at Danny Shelton. They were going to bring him in and sign him. But in any event, James Robinson took a step forward. They're comfortable enough who they have right now to move on from Malcolm Brown. They may make a move. If they do, I'll be the first one to come on here and tell you that they made the move, or on social at Shop Talking Wig, which is my Twitter handle. Make sure you guys take care. By the way, if you're on Instagram, I'm Wig the Barber on Instagram, so you can check me out there too. Y'all take care of each other. We'll keep reviewing anything, any breaking news, we'll have it, and we'll discuss that for you tomorrow. And also, anything else we hear from practice, we're going to give it to you. So we're going to release these podcasts just about every day around this time, just to make sure we get the latest news. You ain't sitting here waiting for 18 hours to hear what we have to say about what has occurred. Until then, you guys take care of each other. Thanks for joining me again and making me your first listen here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day.